Climate change is primarily a technological problem and not a governance issue, is the motion of the day today. And proposing and opposing this motion is St. Bakhita Siakago versus Mayori Secondary School. All the best to both teams. Team proposition, first speaker, you have 3 minutes.
I'm a lover and I'm deeply in love with nature. Who is not enjoying the cool temperature from the dams and from the trees around here? So, I'm Dennis Mugambi from Mayori Secondary School, and I would like to propose the motion that says climate change is primarily a technological problem and not a governance issue. Firstly, I would like to describe what do you mean by climate change. Climate change is a long-term shift in temperature and in weather pattern. The technological problems, these are the climate change that are caused by the technology issues, and when we come to governance problems, these are the climate changes that are caused by the rules that are enacted by the government. So I would like to start with the e-waste. Who does not know about the e-waste? E-waste is the burning of the plastics. So this burning of plastics causes the changes in climate because it leads to production of gases like carbon dioxide, like carbon monoxide, and these gases, they accumulate in the air, this causes global warming, and this global warming, it tends to increase in temperature in our Earth, and therefore this causes to climate change. And also, we also have the electronics, the electronic-like materials like sodium, copper, and calcium, and therefore when they are burned, they also accumulate in the air, causing global warming, and this causes the climate change. We also have the harmful chemicals which are produced by these metals, like the polybrominated dimethyl ethers, which are also known as PBDEs, and these are the principal toxins that are released when the electronics are burned, and therefore this causes the climate change. We also come to automobiles. Automobiles in our society today, the technology has learned to manufacture vehicles, machines, and also we have industries. These vehicles, we have pollutants. They produce gases like carbon dioxide, and these carbon dioxide are also harmful to human health. And therefore, this carbon dioxide also causes the greenhouse gases, which causes the global warming, and this global warming therefore leads to climate change. In addition, vehicles also emits carbon dioxide, which causes respiratory problems to human beings, and therefore, I would like my colleagues here to join me to propose the motion that the climate change is primarily a technological problem and not a governance issue.
Team opposition, first speaker, you have 3 minutes.
Climate change, a problem that has costed humanity a fortune that brings long, sorrowful faces to sight. In front of you stands Lucy Nyekamba, ready to clear your doubt on the motion that goes, climate change is primarily a technological problem and not a governance issue. Before I begin, I'll begin by contextualizing on the motion. We begin by climate. What is climate? Climate, this is a regular pattern of weather conditions of a particular place. And climate change, these are changes in the Earth's weather, including changes in the temperature. Primarily, as used in the motion, means mainly or chiefly. And technological problem means that it is connected with technology, a scientific knowledge that is used in practical ways. And governance issue means that it is an important topic for the government should argue or discuss about. On to my first point, opposition. Technology advancements are crucial in mitigating and adapting of climate change. It is therefore wrong or incorrect to assert that climate change is primarily a technological problem and not a governance issue, as stated by www.edinburghsources.com. Addressing climate change requires technological innovations, policy interventions, and cooperations. Before I begin with my first point on the opposition, I'd like to utter this, that I am not here to say that technology is not a problem, but I am here to say that governance issue is the main problem that affect climate change, First and foremost, to help stop climate change, the government is supposed to allocate funding for climate-related researches, by which it is not doing, and support clean projects, and effective governance ensures that research are allocated appropriately and sustainably. For instance, take us as an example. We, the debate circle, we do research on these motions that concern climate change. Then I see no reason as to why we shouldn't convince the government to fund us instead, and I am very sure, 100% sure, that we are going to do research and that is going to help combat climate change. Or don't you think that is right for the government to help us? Another thing is to add on the point that it is the problem of the government that they are being technophile, that they rush to engage in other technologies that affect the climate change instead of using safety measures and regulations with the technology so as to help combat climate change. For technology is not only a problem, but it is also a solution, and the solution comes from the government itself. Thank you.
Second speaker, team proposition, you have 3 minutes.
A wise man once said, "Speak what is in your mind, but not what is in your hands." Ladies and gentlemen, standing before you is Sharon Nyambura from St. James Mary Secondary School, hereby proposing the motion that climatic change is primarily a technological problem and not a governance issue. I'll start with my first point, bombing. I remember back in the year 1951, back in New Mexico, there was the first atomic test that was widespread speculation and affected the atomic explosion on weather. This bomb caused the rain showers that brought up to destruction of hurricanes. This atomic bomb has also affected the climate because many children born in that place are handicapped. I'd like to pose a question to the ladies and gentlemen who in future are admiring to be mothers and fathers. Would you like your child to be handicapped? My second point is car emission in global warming. These vehicle pollutants harm our health with chemicals that contain greenhouse gases that cause climate change. Significantly to climate change, which results from build-up greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Burning of fossil fuels that cars release carbon dioxide, which is the largest source of greenhouse gases emission in these gases build up to trap the heat in the atmosphere. I would like to ask, if these cars never emitted these smokes and fumes, can the atmosphere be affected? So I'll urge you, princes and princesses, to join hands in building these great minds and not killing these youthful minds. Thank you.
Second speaker, team opposition, you have 3 minutes.
Firstly, let me pose a question to the proposition. Did you know that the government is chiefly responsible for the sequential flow of technology in a nation? No, because if you knew, then you wouldn't claim the electronic emissions as a point as to why the government is responsible. As a point, because the government is responsible for the imports of these electronic devices, that is, sorry. First things first, let me bring you to terms as to the motion. Ideally, climate change is not solely a technological problem, but a complex issue that necessitates the combination of technological advancement and effective governance. The opposition team today is here to strongly propound that the governance issue is the main reason as to why we have climate change. Rispa Mikali from the Bakhita School. On to my first point, governance and policy. Climate change requires effective governance and policy frameworks at local, national, and international levels. Governments play important roles, like investing emission reduction targets, and it even implements regulation. Not only that, but it also creates incentives incentives for sustainable practices. But the question still runs, is the government doing this? Second point, on the regulation and registration. For instance, the Republic of Kenya Sessional Paper number 3 of 2016 on National Climate Change Framework Policy tells us that in order to attain local carbon growth, the government will take steps outlined in this policy by implementing regulatory mechanisms that mainstream low carbon growth options. Won't such framework climate change policies work? It will, but then the government is not doing this. Additionally, even for the partially blind as eye, can vividly seen that agreements, international agreements like the Paris Agreement that provided a global cooperation and coordination on climate change mitigation has worked. This is according to the Sfera.com. So why doubt facts? This is our government. We chose the people that are leading us. So why don't we rely on the government, yet it can enforce regulations to drive the transition to cleaner energy resources? But still, the question runs, what if the government doesn't? A wise man once said, people who stand for nothing, will believe in nothing, will fight for nothing, will fall for nothing, and eventually for something that amounts to nothing. For the proposers, you are trying to inculcate us to believe that climate change is a technological factor, but it is not. You are forgetting that for a state to invent technology, the government is chiefly responsible. And with these levels of intensification, I do believe that I have inculcated you to support the opposition side on our today's motion. Thank you.
Team proposition, you have 3 minutes.
Inadequate rainfall, inadequate harvest is a major song sung by many Kenyans today because of climate change. Alan Murangiri is my name from Mayori Secondary School. Hereby supporting the motion, climate change is primarily a technological problem, not a government issue. First, the first opposer has said that the government is not funding the organization taking care of the environment. In fact, it does. I would like to give you an example of Kenya, the so-called Kanjos. They clean and take care of the markets. In fact, your convention is very dangerous. So, I'll first like to go to my first point, which talks about generation of power. Generation of power, e.g. electricity and heat, by burning of fossil fuels, naturally causes large chunks of global emission. I would like to give you a fact that 29% of the energy produced comes from renewable sources. Think about it. What about the 79% remaining? It comes from the non-renewable resources, e.g. coal. And this, when coal is burned, it produces gases like carbon which goes to the atmosphere and causes global warming, which is called greenhouse effect. The other point I'd like to put across is on industrialization. As we all know, there is increase of industries in our globe. But have you ever sat down to think about the negative effects of these industries? When these industries, e.g., I give you an example of geothermal industries, they release a lot of carbon to the environment. And this carbon, as I told you, it causes the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is whereby the greenhouse effect acts like the greenhouse glass, where that light can penetrate into our globe, but the heat radiated is absorbed by the gases, which means that these gases hold the heat, and when more heat is radiated, it still holds, which means that there will be no escape of heat. This heat leads to climate change. I give you an example of the ice-capped mountains, e.g. Kenya, Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya, the ice at the top is melting day by day, which reduces the amount of ice on top of the hills. This is due to global warming. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Team Opposition. Third speaker, you have 3 minutes.
You can't see yourself because, of course, you're not looking at the mirror. But let me tell you, those faces are not pleasant. And you know why? Mention of climate change. And to me, it is a governance issue. Caroline Muki, of course, on the negating side of this story. First and foremost, the first speaker was talking about electric gadgets. Then I had the examples as sodium and magnesium. Please do your research well, because sodium and magnesium are minerals, not electric gadgets. Secondly, the second speaker, you were talking about the bombing, but I've not had the interrelation with climate change. How is bombing and climate change interrelating? I'm only seeing illnesses. If I become handicapped, have I affected the sun from shining? That speaker, you seem that you are talking about the Kanju being funded. It seems that you have not had recent news that they are complaining. There is no salary, and some of them want to quit. So which funding exactly is the government giving? You are also talking about, you're saying about the industries. I emphasize on what my second speaker was saying about poor policy implementation by the government, which encourages them to do more, because if they were punished, then they would be scared to even do it. So this is the government not actually forcing, but encouraging them to continue in what they are doing. As legends say, poor plan, poor policy, poor implementation. Well, on to my first point. Societal engagement. You see, climate change governance needs to include the citizens, the communities, by decision-making processes. Public awareness, education, and participation is a very key thing in driving behavior change. For instance, according to www.reliefweb.com, they tell us that most companies don't have even the legal mandate to deal with their carbon emissions. Hence, the voluntary initiatives that they take, like advocating for recycling. When you buy maybe soda, they say that you recycle the bag. They are not enough. The government and the regulators need to chip in and put up policies and engage them in the decision making as they make their policies. Because as one person said, a man is not an island. You need me so that you may complete. You don't know this, I know that. Also, adding to what my second speaker said, the government was also fusing about cut one tree, plant two, became a policy. But then, according to Relief Web, the forest cover is deteriorating bit by bit, 2 to 3%. According to the real situation, how many cases have you had of people being arrested because they have cut trees? And if so, they have cut the trees. Is the ratio percentage of the people who are cutting trees and the trees being cut the same? With that, I do believe that I have convinced you to come to our side supporting that this is a governance issue, not a technology, because technology doesn't have legs to come to work to you and do what this harm is doing. Thank you.
Team Proposition, you have 1 minute to give your closing remark.
Okay, thank you for this chance. I would like to correct my second opposer by saying that you are saying the government is not taking any step to ensure that but the government is taking a step like enlightening the people to plant even the trees. So, these trees, they help to controlling the climate. So I don't support technology. We better stay in the 18th century. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Team Opposition. You have 1 minute to give your closing remark.
I must say, I am wowed. You have said that you don't support technology. I thought you are the proposers here. We have offered facts. So why don't you take our comments, save them in a stable bank, and thank us later? As technological innovations such as carbon capture and storage sustainable agriculture are vital in combating climate, which the proposers didn't even know, they alone cannot solve the problem. We chiefly need effective governance and policy frameworks. This is a conclusion. A fact is that climate change is an issue that encompasses both technological and governance aspects. But we, the opposition team, strongly propound that the government is not doing this. Therefore, the government is in it for the causes of the earth weather changes, better known as climate change. Thank you.
Mayori Secondary. Dennis, when you're defining your terms, you talked about technological and governance issues as climate issues, and you see now you define them according to climate change. So that was a wrong definition on the terms. I looked at how you are explaining the governance issue. If technological advancements are the issue, how is it that you did not show how the governance aspect is not the issue when you're explaining your points? And it cascaded down to all the other debaters in your team, Sharon and Alan, where you're not giving the actual inverse as to why governance is not the issue.
For the girls, I think that was commendable, great speakers as well from your end. In my opinion though, I felt in your introduction you could have said, listen, governance is part of government, all right? Because you ended up just jumping into government without first of all introducing us to that. And so it made like this debate should have been then climate change is a technological problem, not a government issue. It wasn't a government issue, it's a governance issue, all right? So you want to bring in and say that the bodies responsible for governance are like government. There are other places where bodies responsible are not necessarily government. We're together on that. So you want to as well not look at as if you pointed us to one direction. But all the best.
I will move straight ahead to the results, and the judges have awarded Mayori Secondary School with 60.35%. A round of applause, please, for Mayori Secondary School. The judges have awarded St. Bakhita Siakago with 66.8%. A round of applause, please, for St. Bakhita Siakago. And the winners of this debate are St. Bakhita Siakago with 66.8%. And we have come to the end of this debate. Thank you very much for both teams. And we congratulate them that will be proceeding on to the finals. Remember to follow our social media handles for more of this sort of conversations and debates on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok, as well as Threads at The Debate Circle. It's goodbye from us.